Communication. That's the big one, isn't it, in a relationship? Because you often have to communicate on a very deep level, and you're often not in the best the paradox of communication. The more you delve into language or any kind of communication, verbal or not, it's been my experience that the more you realize just how limited our capacity to communicate is, and the blocks to effective communication, how many of them there are. But the paradoxical part is we have to communicate with each other. It's almost a frightening paradox, really. It's impossible for us to get our points across effectively, but we still have to communicate, especially in a relationship where each one of us is the biggest single entity in that other person's life now. My wife just moved in with me about a year and a half ago, and we're going through the same thing. I've lived together before with other women. This is my wife's first relationship of that nature, and it's got its problems, I can tell you. A lot of people put it down to the male-female thing, and I suppose there's a large amount of that. But it also, if you ask me, has to do with the fact that, again, no one is as important as your partner in the sort of monogamous relationship that most of us either aspire to or actually live in. Most of us. And you really want to sort of get to know that person effectively, and that's why you communicate so often. But it's not easy to do that because of the limitations of language and the limitations of, or rather the biases, that are inherent in both parties. But you still got to talk things over. It's quite paradoxical. I don't know if you watched the videos that I made on why I'm not an atheist. That kind of touches on that as well. What are you talking about when you say God? Which brings me to the other thing that you're referring to, the Tao group. That's another reason I have to say why I'm uncomfortable with the term atheist. A lot of atheists have this idea, I guess you'd call it, of haram, I guess. There are certain things that one simply mustn't get into, simply because it's religion. And religion is, by its very nature, something horrible, or not even horrible, but it's a guaranteed path to error. I don't know. If a religious person, based upon religious musings, comes up with something profound and wise, are we to reject it for that reason? I think that that's absurd. It's also in keeping with my desire not to sort of rule anything out. Not to pigeonhole myself to the point where there is some sort of halal haram going on, some sort of us and them, some sort of things that we can talk about, places that we can allow our thoughts and musings to go, and places where we cannot allow them to go. This is quite common in just about any sort of school of belief in anything. We can't do that because it's too much like this school of belief, which our core beliefs reject. So I think that you can learn a lot from the religious. It's just that a lot of people, I suppose, they fear contamination. They fear that just because you're non-religious, or you're a-religious, or you're atheistic, or whatever, you've reached that position due to the what you find are the shortcomings or out-and-out evils of religion. Yes, I suppose, but that has the effect of blinding you to or at least blocking you off from possible sources of intellectual stimulation, knowledge, I suppose, growth, and just that idea that that there are certain bits of knowledge out there, or certain ways of approaching knowledge, certain epistemologies that are just to be avoided because they are what they are. I do not shun the religious. I don't shun religion. I don't believe any of it. But it's not something that I think is a menace the way some people do. And I think that if you're fundamentally not a joiner, if you're fundamentally not the sort of person that wants to have some sort of school of thinking, some sort of way of seeing the world that's delineated for you, if you're not fundamentally that kind of a person, you can approach religion or anything as a means of, I don't know, personal growth, intellectual growth, psychological, spiritual growth. Why not? Do you have to believe something in order to derive benefit from it? Interesting little dialogue there. Have a good one.